Okay, if you're a manager, you definitely know this feeling. You've got a talented employee, a great team, but the energy, it just isn't there, right? Motivating people can feel like trying to solve some super complex puzzle. But what if you had a blueprint? Well, today we're going to break down a framework that turns that messy puzzle into a clear, straightforward plan. Let's dive in.
First things first, let's just be real. Does it feel like your team is kind of running on fumes? You know, maybe projects are dragging on, that initial enthusiasm is dipped, or you're just not seeing that creative spark anymore. It is an incredibly common challenge, so you're not alone. But here's the good news, it's not a permanent state, not at all.
And that's exactly where this blueprint comes in. We're not talking about vague ideas or, temporary fixes like a pizza party. Nope. We are building a practical, step-by-step guide to figure out what the real problem is and actually refuel your team's drive for the long haul. So here's how we're going to build it. First, we'll get into how to analyze what truly drives people. Then we'll move on to fulfilling those needs. After that, we got to identify the barriers that are holding them back, and finally, we'll put it all together into a solid action plan. It's a simple 4-step process.
All right, let's lay down the most critical piece first, analyzing needs. Seriously, this is the foundation for the entire blueprint. And why is that? Well, because you can't motivate someone if you don't have a clue what they actually want or need. Guesswork, it just doesn't cut it.
The whole idea here is based on something called needs theory, and it's actually really simple but so powerful. Basically, everything we do, especially at work, is driven by a desire to satisfy some fundamental human need. Think about it, we all have a need for security in our job, or a sense of belonging with our teammates, or that amazing feeling of achievement when we crush a project. So you see, motivation isn't really about carrots and sticks, it's about tapping into these deep human drivers.
So how do you actually figure out what these needs are? Well, it's like a 3-part diagnostic process. First, just observe, pay attention. How does your team member react to feedback, to a new project? Second, you have to listen. I mean, really listen. What topics keep coming up in your one-on-ones? And third, discuss it. Don't be afraid to just ask direct, thoughtful questions about their goals, what they love doing, and what drives them crazy. You're basically becoming a motivation detective. Okay, so once you've done your detective work, you've got some powerful clues. Now we get to step 2, which is all about turning those insights into actual action. This is where we build the framework to fulfill those needs you've uncovered. And I love this because it draws a straight line from a need to a specific managerial action. So if an employee is driven by achievement, don't just pile on more work, give them a challenging project they can really own. If they have a deep need for belonging, then you focus on team building and collaborative work. And for someone who values security, providing clear, consistent expectations isn't micromanaging, it's giving them the stability they need to do their best work. See how that works? But, fulfilling needs is only half the battle. Even with the best intentions, things get in the way. And that brings us to step 3, the reality check. This is all about being honest and identifying the barriers, both big and small, that are actively blocking your team's motivation.
Let's start with the internal barriers. These are often about mindset, about relationships, a lack of trust in you or the company, a crippling fear of failure, or just plain old low self-confidence. Even something as simple as not being totally clear on their role. These internal roadblocks can silently sabotage the drive of even your best people.
And then you've got the external barriers. These are the systemic things, the environmental factors. Stuff like frustrating company policies, not having the budget for the right resources, clunky software that makes work harder, or feeling like there's no path for growth. Recognizing these is absolutely key, because it shows that maybe the problem isn't the person, but the system they're stuck working in.
All right, so we've analyzed their needs, we've identified the barriers. This brings us to the final, crucial step where it all comes together. Step 4 is about developing your personalized action plan. This is where we turn all that great analysis into a concrete strategy.
A really effective plan has just 4 parts. First, get specific with your goal. What exactly are you trying to improve? Then, define the actions you're going to take based on their needs and the barriers you found. Third, give yourself a timeline. It keeps you accountable. And finally, know how you're going to measure success. Is it higher engagement? Better performance? You need to know what working looks like. And this, right here, shows you exactly what it looks like in the real world. This isn't some vague idea, it's a practical tool. Look at Alex, who needs achievement. The action is to make him the lead on the Q3 project by the end of this week. Simple. For Brenda, who needs security, the action is to schedule a consistent weekly 15-minute check-in. It's personalized, it's actionable, and it's time-bound. That's what makes it work. And there you have it. Your motivation blueprint is complete.
4 simple but really powerful steps. Analyze their needs, fulfill them, identify what's in the way, and create a personalized plan. That is the core of this whole thing.
So now the blueprint is yours. I want you to think about your team. Maybe pick just one person to start with and ask yourself, what is the very first step I can take on their blueprint starting today?